this song for ya.
You're listening to Deep Purple Smoke on the Podcast. I will do one episode for each song the band recorded in the studio. However, this is a fan podcast and not band endorsed. It's more of a tribute to their long history, well beyond just the hits, and my way of giving something back to a band that has given so much to me. Let's dig in! Hello and welcome to Season 27, Episode 14 of Deep Purple Smoke on the Podcast. That's right, guys. This is it. This is the last episode for a while. Been thinking about it more and more over the last couple of days, and I honestly don't know when I'll be back to do my re-review of Splat. We have one more song to cover, and I've never heard it. This is the last new Deep Purple song I have never heard, and it feels a little bit weird. I remember feeling this way with Chaos and Color when I was doing Uriah Heep, the Magicians podcast. It's really no different. It's been such a long journey. That was it 2.5 years, 3.5 years? I can't even remember now. This has been a year and a half, but it's 4 episodes a week. It's 314 episodes total, I believe. Let me just double check that. Yes, 314 episodes. Uriah Heep, the Magicians podcast was 408. So that was a lot. They had gone back into the studio, re-recorded some of their songs. I did do one live album by request on that show. So, I mean, it had a little bit different of a structure. It was also, the first band podcast I had done. I learned a lot that I think helped me tighten up a lot for this podcast. So I'm very grateful for being allowed by Uriah Heep, having their actual endorsement to do this. This one, I was hoping to get an endorsement, but did not work out. But you know what? It's all about sharing music and sharing the love and the accomplishment of a band that is very near and dear to you. And I obviously have spent a good chunk of my life with both Deep Purple and Uriah Heep. Coming up, Rainbow as well. But first, of course, the Samhain podcast I have talked about. Keep an eye on the socials, guys. If you're interested in those shows, they will be coming up. Samhain will be this autumn and Rainbow will start in January. Basically 2 years from the time I started this show. It will not be quite as long because Rainbow did not have anywhere near as many albums. And that's partially because Deep Purple got back together. You can't really be in two bands, as Roger said. And so they basically had to put Rainbow on hiatus to see if the Purple thing was going to work. After Perfect Strangers, that was kind of the end of Rainbow until Richie left and reformed it after The Battle Rages On. So a lot of you probably know that. I won't get into that, but check out the show. It's going to have a very similar format to this. I don't think I'm going to be doing guests during the initial run of the show. I think I'm going to do all of that afterwards. So I'm going to go through, do my opinions on all the songs, go through all the albums. I'm kind of back and forth on whether I want to cover On Stage or not, because that is a live album that is very near and dear to me. The live album I probably listen to more than any other. And I'm not that big of a live album guy, although I really do enjoy the Deep Purple live albums I have. I just don't listen to them that often, but yeah, so I'm still a little back and forth on whether I'm going to cover On Stage or not. But I'm thinking I'm going to do all the solo episodes first, and then I will be bringing potential guests on. If I can get a couple of members from the band, maybe I'll filter those into the original seasons, but we will see. We will see what happens. I've still got a ways to go. I have not started recording that. I have my spreadsheet, of course. That was done like day one when I came up with the concept. Because I do love a good spreadsheet. And I think that's going to be the one thing that's kind of sad about not doing a new band podcast after Rainbow is that I need a reason to make a spreadsheet. So there's that. Tentatively thinking schedule Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, because Friday, Corey Morissette and I are planning on releasing WKRP, our rewatch WKRP podcast called God is My Witness, all based on the Turkeys Away episode. If we stick to our Friday idea, then I may do the Rainbow one that way so as not to just have too many damn podcasts on one day. Tough enough when I do like a Cherry Red Records review that, some entire weeks I've got double podcasts. So trying to avoid that as much as possible, although I do love doing those reviews for them. So where are we at? So we are on our final Deep Purple song. I was catching up with the 2 episodes that my buddies Nate and John over at the Deep Purple podcast were doing on Splat. And I waited until I was down to like a couple songs to listen to the first one because I figured they were only going to cover the first half of the album, which they did. And very interestingly, if you guys haven't checked out those episodes, please do. And actually just go check out their whole podcast. I love it so much. But what I found interesting was some of the things that we both pointed out in the songs, and some things that I pointed out that they didn't, and some things they pointed out that I didn't. They are not doing the Breezy Summer format on this, where they're digging deep into the song. So each episode is one side of the album, basically. I was listening today because last night I recorded the Splat episode. So I was listening today because they don't normally do bonus tracks in line with the album typically. So I thought, okay, well, I'll be able to listen to this episode. They'll cover our song today at some point. But they ended up doing it on that episode. So I stopped it right before they played it. So I am keeping to my promise. I have not heard it. And this is going to be an honest first time reaction, which I don't get to do very often. So I'm excited about that. I'm really excited to hear it. I don't know what I don't know anything about it. I haven't heard a single note. So this is going to be interesting, but please go and check out those episodes of Deep Purple, of the Deep Purple podcast with Nate and John. Absolutely amazing. Link is always in the show notes, guys. You can just go right to their site. You can listen to any of the albums. They have gone extensively into the band's history, which is something I very much enjoyed them doing. It's not something I want to do myself, but I'm really enjoying when they do it. There's not an episode of their show that I have not enjoyed. Even the one that was kind of borderline, not by their fault by any means. It was the material they were covering. It just was not working for me, almost to the point where I'm like, I just don't even want to hear another song on this album. But in any case, I'm so grateful for all of you. Stick around after I do the song review. Got some fun statistics that I want to share with you that are still kind of surprising me. Honestly, even as I look back on the statistics for Uriah Heep, the Magicians podcast, there are things that really shock me and I still do not understand, have not gotten any answers or any even reasonable idea as to why some of those stats are the way they are. At the end of the day, I'm just grateful that people are listening to me and listening to the songs that I'm sharing and hopefully, going and enjoying them. I had one fan of the show that actually went and bought Uriah Heep's entire studio catalog, which is like 25 albums. That's insane, all based on a podcast. And with Uriah Heep, it was great because there were a lot of people, especially in the States, they knew the name. They couldn't necessarily connect songs beyond Easy Livin' or July Morning, and they were curious about the band. So it was really cool to be able to connect people with their music. People all over the world were listening to the show, which was great. Going to get into some of that stuff after we talk about today's song. So deep breath, because this is a really weird feeling. I didn't quite feel this way, I don't think, for Equals One as much, because I felt like there was still going to be more. And now we're hoping that they're going to record another album next year. Their tour could just absolutely take off and they could get booked in so many cities that it's going to be another 3 years before they get in the studio. They may not want to by that point, or just have the opportunity to do it by that point. So it is a really weird feeling. I really wish, and I know it's not going to be, but I really wish this were a cover of You Keep On Moving. To me, that would be like the ultimate last album song, because they did And the Address, ending where they started with their very first song released on a record, which was cool. I mean, I don't know the order that they recorded the songs in, but that's what appeared first on the record. So I did like that. Very different version too. I did miss the cowbell, I'll be honest, but I just think You Keep On Moving would have been perfect. And I know that, and I don't blame Ian for not wanting to sing on songs that he wasn't a part of. I don't blame him for that. But I mean, just talk about like a perfect full circle. They came back and did where they started. Now they're coming back and doing where they ended originally. Would have been pretty neat. And honestly, I would love to hear this band do a version of that. I think the vocal would be so interesting to hear, the kind of synth sounds that Don would come up with for that. I mean, I think it would be pretty amazing. But I don't think that's what this song is going to be. It's not even 4 minutes. You Keep On Moving, I believe, was over 5, if I remember right. So anyway, without further ado, now that we're like almost 10 minutes in, let's get to our song. I have no idea what it even means because the title is very simply Guinnessis. Is this about Guinness beer? Is it about Genesis? Is it about the genesis of Guinnesses? Is it the beginning of starting to fall in love with the flavor of Guinness? I will tell you, I'm not a big dark beer drinker. I don't mind a Guinness every once in a while. It's actually kind of nice, but it's just not something I'd want to have all the time. And sorry to my German roots, but what I did like, the product they came out with that I was absolutely blown away with, it was a little expensive, but I could not get enough of it, was chocolate Guinness candies. They were absolutely amazing. They had the Guinness flavor, but they were done in a chocolate, and I loved them. But they were like pretty little, and they were, you know, like a beer stein, and they were really cool the way that they looked and everything. But it was like 5 for $7, and they were not that big. You could easily eat all 5 in just a few minutes and not, you know, feel like you binged or gorged yourself or anything. So if they still make them, if you can find them out there and you like Guinness and you like chocolate, give them a try. I think they're absolutely fantastic. And then I wonder why I'm diabetic. Anyway, let's get to our song. Here it is, guys. Guinnesses by Deep Purple. Well, for those of you who are wondering what that sound was at the beginning, it really did sound like somebody putting the needle on a record. I love that. I don't get the vinyl feel from the song at all, but I do like that kind of idea going in, because this is interesting that it reminds me of like a modern take on Pictures of Home so far. I mean, that may or may not have been intended. I have no idea, but it does kind of remind me of that right off the bat. But also kind of like the way that Rainbow would do part of Difficult to Cure, that you know, and then the two strikes in that kind of reminds me a little bit of that. Some sort of combination of the two. Obviously, much faster than Pictures of Home, much more technical than Pictures of Home, but it just kind of gave me a little bit of a similar feel. So be curious to know what you guys think. Okay, I think I'm going to go a little bit more with Difficult to Cure for this. And Deep Purple was performing Difficult to Cure for a while in the what was it, in the 80s, I think. It might have been when Joe was in the band, but I feel like they did that with Ian. It might have been more Joe. I'm not sure actually the time frame, but Deep Purple was doing it. I've seen videos of Ian Pace playing it. Obviously, Roger was playing that in Rainbow. And again, if you like that song, I cannot recommend enough listening to the final vinyl version of Difficult to Cure. It was live with an orchestra, and it was just so beautifully done. That would have been during the Bent Out of Shape tour, because Chuck Berge was on drums. And Roger's got some great bass moments in there, and it just sounded so amazing with the orchestra. And they did the whole solo section from the fourth movement of the Ninth Symphony of Beethoven's, and it was just incredible. A wonderful, beautiful version. Starts out with Richie on his octave pedal, doing some soloing to lead into the song, and then starts with a really nice intro going into it, and then they just really kick it off into the more familiar parts of the Ninth Symphony. In fact, I've never gone back and compared that opening part to see if that was part of the Ninth Symphony, because I don't know the whole thing very well. I know the fourth movement very well, but I've never actually gone back and compared that. So when I get to Rainbow, maybe I'll have to do a little bit of that. We'll see. But yeah, definitely having that Beethoven Difficult to Cure vibe here so far, but I feel like things are changing. Everyone is just playing so tight here. You can barely tell that there's a keyboard and a guitar track going on, because they're just playing so perfectly together. Definitely love the sound of that. Roger's bass sounds great. Drums, same issues I always have with the drums. It's a lot of somewhat open hi-hat to drive the song, but I think the volume is just a little bit too high for my taste. I feel like we're missing out on something. At least it's not cutting into vocals, because we're 54 seconds in and have not heard a vocal. So I don't know if it's an instrumental or not. I think at one point I thought it was going to be an instrumental, and then I thought I heard somebody say that there were lyrics to it, but I have not seen it. Like I said, I stopped listening before the Deep Purple podcast start playing it, so I don't know if something's coming up or not. You don't get a lot of instrumentals during Ian Gillan's time with Deep Purple. And I think there was the Well-Dressed Guitar, there was Son of Alaric and Contact Lost. I still count Son of Alaric, even though you hear his voice at the very end, because it's not singing, it's just kind of a grunt. But coming and Add the Address, but that was a cover of a Deep Purple song. So really, that's it that I can think of as far as instrumentals go during Ian's time. I might be forgetting one. It's possible, but that's all that's coming to mind at the moment anyway. But this is some fantastic playing, really good energy on this. I'm very impressed with what these guys continue to come up with. I just have to stop it here, because while that seemed very natural, I mean, it's still kind of unexpected. As you're listening to it, it's like, yeah, that transition seems fine. It's very natural, but this is still like a whole nother part they had to come up with. And I think it works really, really well. The flow of the song is great. Like I said, it's high energy, and these guys are just top of their game, honestly. Okay, there is definitely some Pictures of Home going on here. So I love this really technical part, setting up the organ solo. That was fantastic. Then we get this just sort of chaos coming from Don. I love this combination of sounds, absolutely amazing. But then he starts with that part in Pictures of Home that goes da 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 da. It's not exactly the same, but we've got that dun da 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 rhythm underneath of it. Like this really feels like whether it was conscious or subconscious, I have no idea, but I'm definitely getting some Pictures of Home vibes here. Really cool though. Don't get me wrong. I'm thoroughly enjoying this, because it's a completely different way to look at the song. It's not the same, but it does have those relevant similarities that I would say is enough to send me in that direction if I'm thinking of it, just like the Beatles song that we were talking about, that I still cannot remember what it was. I have not gone and looked for it. I can still hear the guitar, I can still hear John Lennon, but I cannot think of the name of that fucking song. It will come to me, or one of you guys will tell me, and life will be good. So leading into the guitar solo, there was actually some really nice stuff. I was enjoying that snare work that Ian Pace was doing. And then we get two back-to-back fills that are basically the same that we've heard over and over again. It's like, at least in the recordings, do something a little bit different. And I would think it would be fun as a drummer to explore different possibilities. But, if you want to do that live so that you can just keep things smooth and simple, that would be okay. But yeah, I mean, in the studio, like, you've got all these options. And here's the truth of the matter. It's very possible they do multiple takes of these songs. Bob Ezrin comes and says, okay, we're going to use this fill from this take, this fill from this take. Obviously Ian's playing them, so you wouldn't be able to use them if they weren't there. But I know in the past I've heard Bob say, do a safety take, like do one take that no matter what, we can use this. Then we're going to do a couple other takes, like one where you just go crazy, and he'll decide what he likes best as the producer and then put that stuff in. I don't know if they recorded this that way, but that's what I've heard him say in the documentaries before. So if that's the case, then it's kind of on Bob, I guess, which ones they use, unless that's just what he plays every time. But as a listener, I mean, I know what he's capable of. I know how creative he is. I want to hear just different stuff, you know. Does the song work the way it is? Absolutely. Of course it does. But I guess I know the creativity that Ian Pace has, and I want to see that. That's what I really want. I just want to see that creativity, that spark, that wanting to dig into new territory. And there's like, if you think about a fill that kind of defines a song or a part of a song, like you look at that fill that Alex Van Halen does in Jump, that's absolutely insane. And you're like, okay, that belongs there. But then when I listen to And the Podcast Will Rock and they play their, thumbs up or thumbs down music, I hear that almost exact same fill in a different song. And I'm like, that's the Jump fill. That belongs with that. I mean, there are certain things that are like stock fills that you can use, but if you're using them all the time in every song or every other song or, 30, 40 times on an album, like it's just not going to be that interesting, and I like people playing in a way that I can learn from or show me some innovation. That's just me personally. For a lot of people, it's probably absolutely fine, and I'm just sounding ridiculous. So anyway, back to the song. It's interesting. I wonder if this was potentially intended for vocals or not, because it has the normal song structure. You've got your, verse and your chorus sections. You've got your solos. You've got your bridge into the solo, which may or may not have vocals. Like it feels very much like just a regular song structure. I don't know how you'd sing over this. The music is so specific and it's moving so quickly. I don't know how you find a lane for vocals on something like this where you're not going to get distracted by all the stuff that's going on in the background, because it's very busy. And I find that, that's kind of one of the reasons that you have those sections where the guitar is going to shine, or, even playing little bits of solos in between lines of vocal, like we've seen so many times with Deep Purple. But to sing over this, there's really not a lane for it. And I think that that could be just something like, let's just leave it an instrumental, because it wouldn't work with vocals. Maybe they tried and didn't like what they came up with. I don't know. I mean, I don't know anything about the song, but I would love to see at the end of it, we just hear Ian grunt like one time, just like in Son of Alaric. That would be funny to me. But I am digging the song. Don't get me wrong. I'm just like looking at, maybe how it came together, because they write all their songs as instrumentals. And, Ian is thinking about melodies and structure. He and Roger put the words together, sometimes just him, probably sometimes maybe even just Roger, I don't know, but it's all done after the music. So it's not like they write the song, vocals are being worked into the song as the song is being written, and they record it that way. It's all the music is recorded first. Ian's listening, he's working, he's humming, and it just kind of feeling the song out. And then it's time to sit down, and Ian and Roger put their heads together and figure out, okay, what is this song about? However they come to whatever those decisions are. So, I mean, I could see this being something that was just a jam, and they had fun with it, and they just decided to record it, and they put a little structure to it. But I definitely feel like it's not designed to potentially have had vocals, because the music is just way too busy. And I don't think there's a clear enough path. So, and also keeping in mind that this is not an album track. This was a bonus track that is only in the box set. So it's not like it was an instrumental on the album. And you have to keep that in mind too. Ah, yes, and then we end with the vinyl crackle and the needle coming off the record. Very, very classic for a band that started during the age of vinyl. Yeah, good song. I did hear that delayed, sort of offbeat snare, and then coming back onto the beat quickly during I think it was the guitar solo, and then we hear it here again towards the end. I think we talked about that in a recent previous song. I can't remember if that was Splat or My New Movie, but it seems like it was on one of the last couple of songs. Great song. I mean, I really, really like it. I think the energy of it is great. I think that I guess maybe another part in it instead of so much repetition would have been cool, but I'm really glad they released this. I think it's a lot of fun. Definitely something that I'll be enjoying many times over. I do get that difficult to cure pictures of home feeling in some of the sections all the way through the song, which is fine. It makes me feel a little bit nostalgic. It makes me want to get out those songs and listen to them again, especially that live version of Difficult to Cure. But yeah, it's a great tune, a really great tune. I'm glad that they released it. I'm sure that at some point that will end up on some deluxe edition CD single thing, for those who were not able to get the box set. Thank you to my friend who was able to get me this so I could use it on the show, since I was not able to get the box set. But yeah, overall, it's a great track, I have to say. And I'm thoroughly happy that they recorded that, because that could have been something that they just were like, it's really not for us, or maybe we'll save that for the next album kind of thing, because that's always a possibility too. So I'm glad that got out there. And that's that, guys. That is season 27. I have now covered every song that I am aware of that Deep Purple recorded in the studio. So I will ask you guys once again, if you know of a studio recorded song that has been released by Deep Purple that I am not aware of and have not covered on the show, please, for the love of all creatures great and small, reach out to me. I want this podcast to be as complete as possible for studio material. And I have looked through all of the, deluxe editions, CD singles, all the things, and I have not found anything else that was released, save for like instrumental versions of songs that you can sing along to at karaoke. That's still the same studio recording I covered, minus the vocals, so not really anything to talk about there. Yeah, that's that, guys. So thank you guys all so much for joining me throughout this podcast, for all your support. I'm gonna, and I'm gonna run through the patrons one more time, because you guys have been such great supporters. At the $5 Money Talks tier, we have William Rose, Corey Morissette, Nate, Mark Roback, Kyroon Olson, Sick Tone, and Josh. At the $1 No Need to Shout tier, we have Peter Gardot, Matt in Vegas, Michael, Ashley Bird, Martin Duffel, and Rosedale Tom. And a total of all the people who have been patrons in the free tier, we have Kenny Wymore, Steve Coldwell, Purple Maniac, Yobani Cortez, Sarah Jane, Shane O'Neill, Zwapper the Electric Alchemist, and Anders Engstrom. Thank you guys all so much for all the support, for the comments, for the shares. If anybody else is going to be at the Vegas show this September at Planet Hollywood, please let me know. We're planning a meetup, still working on putting that together. Haven't had time just yet. We're still a month and a half out from that show, or almost 2 months out from that show. And but let me know if you're going to be there, and if you want to meet up before the show. I'm kind of honing in on a special little place that I am dying to go back to, that I would frequently visit when I lived in Vegas. It was a great spot for me. So kind of maybe looking towards that. But anyway, reach out to me. We'll talk about it. We'll get you on the chain and part of the conversation of how that's all going to work. So that being said, I think it would be kind of fun, of the 314 episodes. Obviously, I'm not counting in these statistics the newest episodes from Splat, because they've not been out. In fact, as I'm recording this, only 7 episodes have aired so far. So some of these haven't even gone to air yet. People have had minimal time to listen. So it's not really fair to count those. I almost don't even want to count the revisit season, because it's really would be about the initial interviews, but just trying to pull the statistics, it became a little bit difficult to sort it the way that they're showing on the report. So I want to talk about the host for this show is Acast. That's where I post all my podcasts. They distribute out to, all the places that you guys are listening, whether it's Good Pods or Apple Podcasts or iTunes or any of those places, Apple or Amazon Podcasts and all those places. That is all originating from my feed at Acast. So first of all, thank you very much to Acast for hosting my shows. It means a lot to me. They are currently sitting patiently on Samhain to walk the pod. They've been sitting on it for months, generally not prodding me, saying, hey, we're sick of you taking up our hard drive space. Get this thing out there so people can hear it. Thank you, Acast, very much. You've been a wonderful host since I switched off of the other hosts that my show was on. I was reasonably happy with Podbean, but there was some things that started happening towards the end, and the fees that I was paying just were a little high. And then Spotify being Spotify, where I used to have Uriah Heep, the Magician's podcast hosted, and I manually moved some 600 podcasts over to Acast, and then had to, it was probably more than that, because I think when I moved Haskincast over there, I don't even know where I was at now. But yeah, so got those all over to Acast. They are now hosting all those shows. They will also, I'm sure, host Rainbow Man on the Silver podcast when it comes time. I have not initiated anything on their site just yet, but I will. To give you guys a total of where I am at overall, these are the most recent numbers. No, that can't be right. No, it's not right. So never mind that. I'm like 1,660 podcasts total, I think. 314 of those are Deep Purple Smoke on the podcast. So let's talk a little bit about those statistics. As of the day I'm recording this, and I've been doing this for a year and a half, 4 shows a week, have not missed a show. I'm very proud of that. We only had one dark week between the last episode and then the initiation of Splat. I had no idea when Splat was going to be released. All I knew was 2026. So it could have come out while I was still doing, Whoosh. And I would have had to have made a decision at that point how I was going to do it. Luckily, it was only a week the show was dark. Other than that, which I think is fair because there were no shows to do, did not miss an episode for a year and a half. I'm very proud of the schedule I kept. It was hectic doing this many shows on top of the Haskincast podcast, and then some bonus episodes on Uriah Heep, the Magician's podcast, for box sets that Cherry Red Records was releasing, on top of all the Cherry Red Records reviews that I do. So it's been very, very hectic, and I'm very proud of the work that I've put into the show and keeping it on schedule. That being said, Acast, as of today, 37,005 listens. That's pretty cool. That is pretty cool. I was hoping the show would take off more than it has, but that doesn't mean I am not incredibly grateful for every one of those 37,005 listens. Thank you all very, very much. None of them were me because I don't listen to the show. So there's that. So the most listened to episodes in order, which I do find fascinating, the top episode is not even a song. It's the inaugural RSS feed episode announcing what the podcast was going to be. Welcome to Smoke on the Podcast. That's the very first episode, and that is the one that has the most listens. Second, and I think I might have an explanation for this, is Hallelujah. This is the song that Ian Gillan and Roger Glover were brought in to record with Deep Purple while Rod Evans and Nick Simper were still in the band. Covered this in season 4, I think it was, when I was covering the concerto, because this really didn't have an album. It wasn't part of In Rock. It wasn't part of the concerto. It was kind of in between those two, but it would have actually been before the concerto because they were already in the band. And this was kind of their, let's see if we can work with these guys kind of thing. And it's amazing when you listen to the performance, thinking that these guys were not people that had worked together for a while. It is so comfortable. Great bass playing from Roger, great singing from Ian. Everyone else had been working together for a year and a half or so they were comfortable with each other. But I think the reason that this is the number one song is probably because there are other songs out there with Hallelujah in the title, and good chance that this one came up on searches and people checked out the episode. Now, that is not to demean the song by any means, because I love that song. If you heard that episode, if you're one of the people that helped make that statistic, then you know exactly how much I love that song and why. It's one I'm always happy to put on. Have a copy of it on 45 from Tetragrammaton, which I am absolutely happy of. I'm so happy that I have completed my Tetragrammaton vinyl collection with at least one copy of everything that they released, which is absolutely wonderful. Third overall episode is Seventh Heaven from Abandon. Why? I don't know. I mean, it's a great song. It's got a really interesting feel to it. Really, just kind of throws you around a lot. But that is the third most listened to episode on Acast. Fourth, and I can kind of see this one, is When a Blind Man Cries. It's such a beautiful song, left off of Machine Head because Richie did not like it and was never performed live with him. Obviously, once he was out of the band. I don't know if they did it with Joe Satriani, but they played it plenty with Steve Morse. So, it's one I think that people can connect with outside of the, if you don't take it literally. If you take it more figuratively, I think a lot of people can identify with it. We've all had our moments of just solitude and helplessness and all the emotions and feelings that song conveys. So isolation for sure. So I think it's one that people can identify very well with. And the fifth top download or listen, I should say, from the podcast app. And this should be including streams from the website as well, because that all should come right from the Acast player that's on my website. You can go to wherever you listen to the podcast and listen on your podcast player, whatever you're subscribed to. You can also go to my website, and every single episode is right there available for streaming. It's organized into individual pages per album. And then each song on that page has its own player, as well as the player on the main podcast page. I do that for all the shows. The Haskin Cast podcast is a little bit different because the list of episodes on some of those pages are just so long that for every one of them to have their own player would take a very, very long time. But every song does have a link to the Acast site where you can stream it right off their site, still going through my site to do it, so you don't have to search around for it. So that's how that's done. It'll be the same for sound as it is for these podcasts. The seasons themselves are short enough to where I can just put the individual song player on there, and it'll be the same with Rainbow. That's unless something changes on Acast's end, that is the goal. But our fifth song, Highway Star, not Smoke on the Water. It's Highway Star, another obviously very, very popular track from Deep Purple. Interestingly, the least listened to songs, or episodes, I should say, going in order of least to least, as it were. We start off with, and I am absolutely stunned by this. I really am. I have no explanation for it whatsoever. It's Perfect Strangers. These are all revisit episodes, by the way. But it is the Perfect Stranger revisit episode that I did solo. The stats for the original Perfect Strangers episode was much, much bigger. Bleeding Obvious would be the second least listened to song. Time for Bedlam, Lazy Sod, and then a bit on the side. And then again, like I said, all these are the rewatch or revisit episodes. So there's the ones that I did solo after initially having a guest on. So the next set of statistics I want to give are basically the view statistics from the YouTube channel. Kind of did the same thing. I'm like, what are the most listened to episodes and what are the least listened to episodes? So we're going to start with the least listened to episodes this time at the very bottom of the list. And, this kind of is interesting because I think this is an absolutely beautiful song. It may not be everybody's cup of tea, but it's Haunted from Bananas. From the first time I heard that song, I really wish that I was a good enough singer to be able to sing that song with the emotion and the strength that Ian Gillan does. I think it's a fantastic performance for him. Second would be Show Me. Again, that's the revisit. Third would be Don't Make Me Happy. Again, the revisit one. Then we have What the What, which was the original airing of that one because I did not have a guest for that. And then the fifth least listened to episode would be Time for Bedlam, which is kind of a shocker. Again, that's the revisit, but God, that's such a great song. I would be curious to hear what people are hearing inside of that song. In fact, obviously with this new Summer Breezy format that the Deep Purple podcast is doing, where they're, taking an entire episode to dig into individual tracks, I'm very curious what will happen when they get to that one, because that's a song that I cannot get enough of, no matter how many times I hear it. So what were the top YouTube viewed songs? Very interesting is our first one. I would not in any way, shape, or form have guessed this would be the number one Deep Purple podcast or Deep Purple Smoke on the Podcast YouTube watch song. It is their cover from Turning to Crime of Rockin' Pneumonia and the Boogie Woogie Blues. Not my favorite song by any means. They do a fine version of it. I just don't really care for the song. That is the number one by a country mile. Like, what was it? Like 6 times the amount of views of the next song, which is also off Turning to Crime. I completely bamboozled by these stats, you guys, and that is Watching the River Flow. That got far less than Rockin' Pneumonia and the Boogie Woogie Blues, but still the second most viewed episode on YouTube. Third, and this really coincides with the Acast list again. It was second on the Acast list is Hallelujah. Again, I would probably cite the same reason, song familiarity, with that being in the title. There are a lot of songs with Hallelujah in the title, and I have a feeling that was probably it. So I did not look at minutes viewed because, it may or may not be a relevant statistic. So fourth was Strange Kind of Woman, which is kind of an interesting one. Again, not Smoke, not Perfect Strangers, not Highway Star even, or anything like that. And fifth is Getting Tighter, the original review that I did with my guests, Simon Ford and Nate Beaudry, one of only 2 episodes that had 2 guests on it. So fantastic review. I had so much fun with Simon and Nate. We have a little group chat that we talk about interesting album releases and things like that. But yeah, that was a great episode. So very interesting statistics on the listening side, and the total listens or views, I should say, on YouTube. I don't really want to call them views because there's no video per se. I put the title card in the video as what will show on the screen. I faded in and faded out because, I'm such a great videographer and a technical guy. But other than that, yeah, it's not really a video for watching. It's just there utilizing the platform of YouTube. But because of the edits and things that I do, the show would be hideous to listen to. So the total amount of YouTube views / listens is 25,095. So just between YouTube and Acast, that's pretty good. It's not quite, let's see, 37.25. So that's 57, 60, just 62,000 and 62,100 if my math in my head is right. So that's still pretty good. And it's got a ways to go. Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast, would be hard to compare to, just even based on the number of episodes. That did hit over 100,000 and is still going as people are still discovering the show. And that is the beauty of podcasts, is that even though the show is basically done at this point, pending my eventual revisit, I should say, of Splat, whenever I'm ready to do that, and then the potential new album that they're talking about recording in 2027 will bring the show back for that, absolutely, for another season. Other than that, the show is basically done, and it's a really weird feeling after a year and a half at the pace I've kept up, even though I hadn't recorded a bunch of episodes for a while because they've kind of been in the can. Just even being connected with the announcements and the work involved with the social media stuff, answering questions, appreciating comments and plugging in the Patreon role and all that sort of thing. It has still been extensively taking up my time, which I'm happy to give. I'm not good at the social media stuff, as I talked about recently. 62,100. I actually used a calculator and found that my brain still works. So there's a good thing. But thank you guys all so much. People all over the world have listened to the show. I don't hear from everybody all over the world, but I would still encourage you guys, even though we're pretty much wrapped up here for the most part, with the potential of a couple of more seasons down the pike. Please do leave a review on Apple Podcasts or iTunes for the show. While we may have gotten through all the episodes, there are people that have not even discovered this podcast yet. I'm still finding people that are just discovering Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast, and that's been over for a couple of years. And so the podcasting thing, it's like a band, an album. Corey Morissette just heard Stargazer for the very first time the week I'm recording this, and that song has been around for quite some time. He is an avid listener of music, never heard Rainbow Rising. So he wasn't, like, Rainbow just wasn't on his radar. So there's always people that are going to be new. There's new generations. There's people that aren't necessarily fans of Deep Purple or just starting to become fans of them, this album will bring them new fans. So the more that we can help let them know that these podcasts exist, and please do the same for Nate and John at the Deep Purple podcast. It would be much appreciated. Join their Patreon if you would. They put that stuff to good use. So thank you guys so much for everything. It's been an amazing year and a half. Please stay connected to either your podcast player in the show, or keep checking my website or the socials, whether it be on Blue Sky or Facebook. I also do post the episodes on Pinterest. I know it seems kind of a weird place to do it, but anywhere that you can get the word out is worth doing. And also Instagram is the other place that I'm on. I have Scott Haskin Podcasts on Instagram. And because that page encompasses pretty much all the podcasts I do, Uriah Heep, that page was really just too big and you can't merge them yet. I'm hoping that they'll make that feature one day. But Scott Haskin Podcasts on Instagram. All the links are in the show notes, guys. You can follow them. You can join the Facebook group where I post all the pictures of the physical media that I have for Deep Purple, as well as all the episodes with links to the YouTube and 8cast feeds, as well as the website, Deep Purple Smoke on the Podcast, links for the Boneless Podcasting Network, which you should also, now that you're going to have all this free time without me delivering episodes 4 days a week, you can check out the Boneless Podcasting Network. Lots of great shows on there. I'm not going to read through them because there are just too many. And by the time this airs, there will probably be even more shows on the network, but plenty of great stuff. Check out the 70s Weekly Countdown with Mark and Pete. Check out the Rory Gallagher, the Bad Penny podcast that Mark Roback started. Check out all of Chaz Charles's show, Corey Morissette. I'm often on Corey's shows. Check out our new show, the God is My Witness, the WKRP Rewatch podcast that we're doing. Check out Kevin Brown's shows. Check out all the stuff that's on the Boneless Podcasting Network. There's a lot of great shows, just so much to listen to and enjoy. But please do keep an eye out on this, on any of the feed that you're following this show on, because when it is time, announcements will be made, and you may not want to miss those episodes. So I'm going to be curious to see in whatever time frame I feel is right to how I feel about these songs for Splat. I have not bad feelings towards the songs themselves, aside from the production issues that I talked about in these episodes. It just there are certain riffs that are starting to play in my head now, so I feel like it's becoming familiar and growing on me, but it's just kind of not very common that Deep Purple albums have to grow on me, so I find that interesting. But God, it's been one hell of a journey, you guys. You guys are all fucking awesome, and I just appreciate all the love and support. I appreciate you guys that listen, whether you've interacted with me or not. Obviously, you're getting something out of all of this if you spent time listening to more than a couple minutes going, who's this guy I think he is talking about this band that I love and what does he know and all that? Well, I mean, I know what I feel and I know what I'm finding in the songs, and that's what this is all about. It's not about, as much as the political side of the band or contracts or, touring and all that kind of stuff. Those are elements of things. But at the end of the day, the only thing that really matters to me, besides the good health of the band that I dearly love, is how this music affects me, how it makes me feel, sharing those feelings with you guys, but also looking from an audio engineering standpoint and a producer standpoint to point out things I'm finding that, if you're a producer or audio engineer, you may find of interest. But if you're not, you also may find that side of things interesting too. So hopefully you guys will listen to any shows that you didn't listen to. You'll continue to spread the word, leave some reviews. If you do leave a review, please send it to me and I will post that on the website, because all the reviews that I have, which is I think 6 so far, are all on the website. Thank you all who took time to do that. And just from the bottom of my heart, thank you all. This is a very weird moment and I don't want to get too emotional about it. So I'm just going to put an end to this. Thank you guys. Cheers. Thanks for listening to Deep Purple Smoke on the Podcast, a tour of the entire Deep Purple studio recordings. Please remember to give the show a rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening. Leave a comment and tell your friends. I also have a Patreon set up if you'd like to support the show. You can also write to me at smokeonthepodcast@gmail.com. I hope you enjoyed the episode and thanks for listening.